and Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So purchasing a home is probably the most thrilling and frightening thing a person does in their lifetime. So understanding the process, the trends, the tricks, the traps is an intimidating process to be sure. So selecting a great realtor is critical. Someone I've gotten to know and trust is Chris Silker from the Keller Williams Advantage and team. And he is here today to teach us some of what he knows. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So how did you decide to get into the residential real estate industry to begin with?
Well, like most people in real estate, I kind of backed into it. There are a few people who decide that it's going to be a career path earlier on, but I think that the majority of us in the industry can say that that hasn't been our path.
Okay.
I came to real estate from an educational background. As a teacher, I knew that the income was not going to support the goals that I had for my family, and so I'd always intended on doing real estate investing as a supplement to that income. When it became clear that teaching was just not going to be the path that was the career choice for me, I decided to give real estate a go. That was in 2012, and haven't really looked back since. It's been a phenomenal change and opportunity for my family. It still feeds the part of my soul that needs to help people grow and learn and understand. My demographic is a little bit different, but my methodology and my passion is exactly the same.
Huh. Okay. So Keller Williams, obviously a powerful brand. I'd consider it a household name. What made you decide to work with Keller Williams? What was their value proposition that made them the best partner for you?
The value proposition of Keller Williams back then is the same as it is today, and that was we are an education company that happens to sell real estate. And that just spoke to me. That was compounded, or I guess added to the fact that it was built by agents for agents. It was a very, and still is a very transparent company from the leadership all the way down. Open books, profit share, everything towards what is best for the whole. And you either get to be a team player or you get to choose to be somewhere else. And I would say in my experience, many real estate brokerages aren't like that. Most real estate brokerages understand and look at agents as independent contractors, and it's a do your own thing. If you happen to be successful, that gets safeguarded. At Keller Williams, it's really not like that. We are a team, and if you are successful, you get the opportunity to share that success with others and help them along their journey as well. And that just spoke to me as a person, and as a person that wanted success. I wanted people who could be both mentors and then also have the opportunity to be a mentor to others as well. And I've had that opportunity, and I still enjoy that today.
Nice. So how do they work their curriculum? I mean, if you, as a newer agent, how do they kind of prep you to get going? And then as a seasoned agent like you are, what are your opportunities to engage with the other Keller Williams partners for this mentorship that you just discussed?
Numerous, more numerous than we have time to go over today, but they are plentiful. At our local market center here in Lansing, there are classes pretty much every day of the calendar year.
Wow.
Monday through Friday are available in the market center for training. We have KWU, which is an online university that has literally every printed and recorded training session document created by a Keller Williams regional market center, and up to international is available and searchable, cross-indexed and referenced. There is, I think the last count, well over 3 million hours of content on there for anything from how to build a successful business from your P&L to how to generate leads, to how to hold an open house, to generate the most traffic for your seller, to find and reach the most ready, willing, and able buyers in the market are all there. So anything from the market center level to the regional to the national to the international level are all available. There's also more advanced courses and individual coaching programs through MAPS, which is a Keller Williams owned coaching company for primarily real estate, but all businesses are welcome, and many businesses are coached through that program. I have a phenomenal relationship with my business coach, Kyle Harrison, and have been working with him for 5 years, who's helped me transform my business. Got it.
Okay. So I think that's really welcome to hear. Just as a layperson who's not in the residential real estate world, there are impressions that people get from residential real estate, and to hear that there's so much content, from Keller Williams and that you really take advantage of, lets me exhale a little bit that, working with someone who knows what they're doing and has the kind of passion that you've already kind of exuded. So just, it took me a minute to dawn on this. So I know the answer to this question, but you represent both buyers and sellers, right?
Absolutely, I do. And very rarely on the same transaction.
Right. Because, it sometimes is, until you're in it, until you have a house for sale or you're looking for a house, does it dawn on you that there's a person on either side helping you advocate for that. Is it kind of a 50-50 mix, or do realtors tend to specialize in one or the other? Or does pretty much everyone do the buying or the selling agency?
It is an absolute mixed bag.
Okay.
So it really depends on you. It depends on your business. It depends on your goals. For me personally, I work with both buyers and sellers. I love showing homes. I love helping people make great decisions in buying homes. And yet I have a young family. I have a burgeoning business. And so I have to be very protective of my time. And working with buyers does take a lot of time. And so I have a business that's about 70% on the list side and 30% on the buyer side. So actually a little bit heavier than that this year, just because there's so few transactions in the marketplace happening.
Okay.
I have been really centric on my listing side. So this year we're going to close probably around 60 to 70 homes. About 10 to 15 of those are going to be on the buy side. The rest are going to be listings.
Got it. Okay. And so when is, from an advice standpoint, when should people reach out to Chris Silker, whether they're buying or selling? Like at what point should they start engaging someone?
The moment they have an opportunity to ask that question of themselves is the opportunity to reach out. I would say my average turn time from the first conversation I have with someone before they actually have a transaction, whether that's buying or selling, is about 19 months. So we have a year and a half of relationship building and trust building and education as we go through that journey. That's certainly not every transaction, but that is a lot of them, particularly on the buyer side, particularly with first-time home buyers. It takes a while to get ready. There's a lot of steps to prepare for. And in this market where there are very few transactions happening, you have a lot of opportunities to learn, grow, to make offers, to lose, and to kind of let fate have a little bit of a hand in that as you go through that journey.
Right. And I think of residential real estate as a huge pendulum that constantly is swinging. You hear buyer's market, seller's market, interest rates are up, interest rates are down. All of these things affect the strategy, I guess, that you need to deploy someone who is looking to make a residential transaction happen. So kind of where has the market kind of been, say, since the pandemic? I mean, it's now September of 2024 as we record this. So it seems to get further and further in the rearview mirror. But I think we've seen markets that are not traditional. Kind of where have we been and where are we now?
So just to kind of back up a little bit and go through some of the history of real estate, because I think that's really important for people to understand.
Absolutely.
People think that there is this pendulum back and forth and that it moves fairly rapidly. The fact when you look at the data is it doesn't. There are two markets. There's a buyer's market and a seller's market. However, pretty much since early 2000s, we have predominantly in this country been in a seller's market, save the housing crisis from 08 to 12.
Okay.
There are short blips here and there in between. 08 to 12 has really pretty much been, since the 2000s, the only buyer's market we've had in the last 25 years, last quarter decade. The reason is our population has been growing faster than the housing stock. And that housing stock has been compounded by the fact that during that housing crisis, the vast majority of our builders went away for various reasons, and they haven't been able to come back. And the new construction that we have, particularly in the greater Lansing area, is mostly executive style homes that are not really solving our housing crisis needs at the entry and second home levels. For an area that has a median price point of about $230,000 and your average new construction starts at above $4 million, you can tell why there's an issue.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And all of that takes money, so I want to sidestep and thank one of my sponsors, the Wagoner Financial team. Are you ready to make smart financial decisions so you can buy a home? Wagoner Financial offers proven process for financial transformation, empowering individuals at all stages, whether you're just starting out, nearing retirement, or anywhere in between. Stop feeling unsure about your financial path. Wagoner Financial can help you undergo this financial transformation. Schedule a consultation today to discuss your individual needs and discover how Wagoner Financial can guide you by visiting wagoner-financial.com or call them at 517-853-3367. You will not regret it. So you talk about the housing challenges. So the builders are building what the masses can't afford. They're still selling, though.
Absolutely.
So the higher ticketed price, but the goal would be to try to have more of that $200,000 housing stock on the market.
Absolutely.
Is there a forum where realtors can share data with the developers and maybe the economic development practitioners and the cities and all the people that can help to court developers to build that kind of stock?
Absolutely. There is. We do that as an industry very well. We do that through the Realtors Political Action Committee. We do that through our local associations and boards with our local developers and landowners. There are a lot of challenges, and I don't want to digress too much into why that challenge exists. I mean, the most basic one is that we're running out of land very quickly. Urban sprawl and urban density, particularly in Lansing, is kind of rampant. We don't have a lot of vertical housing that could help solve some of those issues. I would say that moving forward, I think the biggest challenge we're going to have is keeping home ownership centric in the cultural foreground. It's still the greatest way to accumulate wealth and to create savings and futures and legacies. We're starting to see more and more small business and entrepreneurship capturing some of the benefits of home ownership. But there is no better forced savings than a home because it comes with a roof, a kitchen, a bedroom, a place to stay and live. Right. And we all have to have that anyway. And when you're paying someone else to do that, you lose that opportunity to pay yourself. Right. And we have to keep that in the forefront of why that's important and keep that accessible.
Makes a lot of sense. I have a lot of shows talking about the housing shortage, and you're right. There, a lot of the residential construction is the 400,000 and up homes, and the multifamily rental units, which doesn't inspire home ownership. So I understand what you're saying when you talk about that gap. And you talked also about the seller's market historically, or in recent history, except for the window of the recession. Is there anything to keep an eye on? Is there anything in the the tea leaves as to any changes in that, or do we think it's going to be a seller's market for the foreseeable future?
I don't see an opportunity, and the people that I know and trust who are much smarter than I am don't really see that changing anytime soon. The fact of the matter is there is no ability to solve that housing crisis fast enough to really bring costs and create that accessibility that we're all craving into the forefront immediately. What we see happening since the pandemic was compounded by a couple of things. One, everybody was not working or they were working from home. There was disposable income. Interest rates were rock bottom and they were going even lower to try and keep the economy going. All of that created this perfect storm where something like 70+% of the American population either refinanced their home or moved or both within 4 years. And so we have this now 80+% of people who have interest rates at half or even lower than current interest rates, which 6% is still the 100-year average. This is not a bad interest rate. Homes are still accessible. Yes, there's no denying that it's more expensive than it was 3 years ago, but the fact is we're not going back there. Right. We're not going to be back in the sub 5 category anytime soon, probably within my lifetime.
So get used to it.
Get used to it.
And don't let that deter you.
And don't let that deter you. It is what it is. And when you look at that opportunity cost of 6% to an interest versus 100% cost in rent, it's a no-brainer. Right. Your opportunity cost there is, by definition, is 94% that you could have been putting back into your opportunities for future growth.
Do you see people that you come across who are like, I missed a window. My house doesn't kind of currently serve my needs. I was planning to move, but the interest rates moved and I'm locked in at 2.75% or something. And now I think I'm just going to stay still, even though my house doesn't fit my needs. Is there a message to those folks that you'd like to deliver?
I think that you need to have an opportunity to speak with a great professional like me or someone like me that can help you get through that and do the math. I think the math can be challenging when you're not in the industry and you're not looking at all of the avenues of, am I better to do this now? Is life going to make this not a choice and make this a necessity at some point in the near future? And with the way we see housing stock continuing to increase in price, even today, we're still looking at probably 5% year over year appreciation for 2024. And that's going to stay pretty comparable, I think, for 2025, unless we see some significant reductions in interest, which is certainly possible. That's on the horizon.
Yep.
If that happens, I think those price appreciations are going to continue to rise. If you're feeling uncomfortable in your home right now, but feeling locked in by an interest rate, you really need to have a conversation and look at the math of how much longer am I going to be putting this off? And then how much is that going to really cost me in the end? It's very likely that the housing market is going to far outstrip your interest expense in the future with price appreciation rather than getting into that right home now.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So when you're talking about these buyers, right, that you're trying to, help them find the home that's going to fit them. And it sounds like you give them some strategic advice as to doing the math and helping them navigate some of that. Do people come to you kind of with a, here's what I'm approved for from a mortgage size standpoint, or do you help them kind of figure out what their budget might look like based on your interactions with them and that 18-month relationship you talked about?
Absolutely. So people do come to me pre-approved all the time, and that's great, but that's just a starting point. It's one educational piece of data. We really need to spend some time talking about why that's important. A lot of people, particularly on the buyer side and newer buyers, get attached to a price that's really not that relevant. The price of the home is very seldom realized. The average American stays in their home less than 11 years. Your mortgage is set for 30. You're never paying the full price of that home anyway. What you're really paying is your monthly expense to have a roof, and then you're looking at how much you can recapture and what's your exit strategy. And I think that's a step that a lot of people, including other agents, miss on a sale transaction is, what's the exit strategy? That's one of the first things we talk about is how long are you planning on staying in this home? What phase of life are you in? Are you newlyweds and you're telling me you're going to be in this home for 20 years? It's an 850 square foot, 2-bedroom house. Maybe not.
Right.
Let's talk about what life is going to look like. What are your other plans? How many kids do you intend to have? What are your travel opportunities? What are your retirement goals?
Yeah,
those are all things that we need to have in the picture when we're picking the right house for the moment.
Makes sense. And how about the sellers that you represent? It's got to take a lot of strategy and thought and understanding of the market to put the right number on a house that's going to be put up for sale. How do you manage that process?
Every seller wants the most money possible for their home. That's no secret, and there's no shame in that. That's what you bought the home for, and that's what you're making good financial decisions for the future around, is that exit and entrance. And so a lot of times we have to look at what is their expected net, not the sale price, and really kind of work backwards from there. The other thing that a lot of sellers don't understand is that the sales price is just a sales tool. It's not an ego thing. It's not a real valuation. It's a way to attract people to come look at the home. The value is set when the ready, willing, and able buyer says on a dotted line with a signature below it what I'm willing to pay.
Right.
The marketing price is the people miss is the marketing. It's about what gets people in the door. And so a lot of times people get stuck around a value that is emotionally based in the cost of the work or improvements that they've made in that home or their original purchase price. And that's fair and understandable at a human level, but it has nothing to do with the buyer that's going to purchase the home. And so that's where a lot of our time on the education side is spent when we're talking about getting a home on the market, is what is the best packet of information, the best holistic picture of your home, starting with the price, because that's where every buyer has to start. When you go to any search engine where 96% of people are going to find your home to buy is online, the very first parameter that they're putting in is the price range. And if you miss that price range, you're missing your ideal buyer who's going to pay the most for your home.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, I want to thank the team at Triterra. Triterra is a leading environmental consulting firm headquartered in Lansing, Michigan, with staff around the state to serve your brownfield redevelopment, environmental consulting, and natural resource management needs. Since 2008, Triterra has been successfully advising a wide range of organizations to implement solutions to complex environmental challenges. If you are a business, a developer, a property owner, a lending institution, attorney, or governmental entity looking for a solution, and you want prompt and timely service, do not hesitate to contact my friends at Triterra. Led by CEO and visionary Don McNabb, leaders J.P. Buckingham and David Van Haren, and their dozens of technical experts you can't miss by calling Triterra at 517-702-0470 or check them out at triterra.us. They mean it when they say it's not just what we do, it's who we are and how we do it. So I think one of the things that dawned on me is I've purchased a couple of homes in my life. I've moved around quite a bit for my work, is the partners that I rely on my realtor to have. Right. So, and the quality of those partners and the fact that I don't want to have to find them on my own, right? Like inspectors and just other people, the mortgage companies and things of that nature. Talk about your strategy on how you create your Rolodex of referral partners because of your belief in how good they need to be.
Real estate is at its very base origins a relationship opportunity. And my third-party partners, my lenders, my home inspectors, my contractors are all people that I need to have deep, trusting relationships with. They're all people that I have used personally for my own transactions, for whether that be for my personal homes or my investments. They are people that I have seen in practice and have vetted through the entire process. One of the things that's really important to me is that there is no shared business opportunity in my third-party partners. There is no kickback. There is no referral fee. It is a merit-based system for me.
Right.
And so you have to do the work. I'm not going to refer someone to one of my clients that I haven't seen do the whole job in full more than once, that I haven't seen make a mistake and then make it right. We're all human, and we are going through very complex opportunities and transactions. And so mistakes do happen. There are unforeseen challenges and opportunities for growth along the way that happen. And how people handle that, take ownership, and find those solutions is really important to me. And so I don't refer anyone that hasn't gone through that process with me. And I have very, very deep faith in my relationships with those organizations.
It couldn't be more important for me to hear. I agree with that. And I think listeners who've gone through the process, whether it worked out well or didn't work out well, I think would echo that that's really important time spent. So that's great. Your industry, it just went through a recent kind of a shakeup, I guess, a little bit, the Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit. I have enough friends on social media that are in the industry that I heard some of the backlash and people posting, here's what this really means. And so I have a little nugget of knowledge of what this is, but why don't you share with our listeners what the Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit was, what the results were, and how that changes the way things are done?
So it hasn't changed the way things are done enormously. What it has changed for the best is created more opportunities for conversation, particularly in areas of real estate outside of mid-Michigan. It revolves around this concept and misunderstanding of cash flow in a transaction. The lawsuit asserted that since a seller was debited the commissions for both sides of a transaction, both seller and buyer agency, even though the buyer agent was representing the buyer as a fiduciary independent of the seller, it wasn't right, in their opinion, to cover that cost. I think it's important to understand the reason why that system started and why that system is going to continue to stay in place, where the buyer agent commission is going to mostly stay as a debit on that seller side, is because the number one objection to home ownership, or the number one opportunity for buyers that prevents them from getting in, is saving the funds necessary. Mm-hmm. And so even though you can get into a home for as little as 3.5%, sometimes less in rare occasions, that's still a large chunk of change, particularly since the median home price is now $230,000. It's not common that first-time home buyers have, $6,000 to $7,000 saved, plus another 3% or whatever percent commission their buyer agent may choose to charge, whether that's a percentage or a flat fee, could be really inhibitive in their ability to buy a home. And as an industry and as someone who is passionate about home ownership and wealth growth in our country, I want to see more people have that opportunity to get into homes. And the reason that system started is simply that by kind of baking in that commission or that payment, whatever it may be, into the sale, you're not artificially inflating the cost of the property. You're just wrapping in those expenses. And I think that there's a big misunderstanding about how that cash flow happens and how representation can still be independent, when really all we're talking about is which side of the debit and credit columns on a settlement statement the number appears on.
Got it.
I think that's really important. So Sitzer-Burnett asserted that it wasn't fair and it was creating artificial price inflation that the seller was paying a buyer agent. What we're having now is the rest of the country is following real estate the way that I've been practicing real estate my entire career, the way we've been practicing real estate in the Greater Lansing my entire career, is that we do have exclusive buyer agency. We meet with buyers and have our consults up front. We establish what that payment for service is going to be in helping them buy a home up front. Now we get to have a better conversation than we were previously, which the previous conversation was, look, the listing agent has already negotiated a commission. That's taken care of. That's no longer the case. And I think that's really powerful because it creates a more transparent conversation. It really gives a better opportunity to educate people on the cash flow in a transaction. So now when it's a conversation with the buyer, it's like, here's the fee, the charge of what I'm going to get paid as a representation for you in helping you find the right home, best price, best amount of time possible. That's going to be paid in one of three ways. Either the seller is going to pay all or a portion of that through the proceeds of the home. You're going to pay all or a portion of that out of your pocket, or we're going to negotiate with the seller to go over an agreed upon price to get some of that back to help cover that expense for you without affecting the seller net.
Got it.
And so I think that's a better conversation. It's a more transparent conversation. And I think that's a positive change for our industry. In terms of how it's going to change the way real estate has been practiced, it's not going to change things a whole lot other than having better conversations up front.
Which you were doing anyway.
Which I was doing anyway.
Right on. Okay. Well, that was good. I was a little fuzzy on what that meant. I'm not a realtor. I do have a license from a past career, but I wanted to hear more about that. So I'm glad that you were shedding some light on that.
There's certainly been a lot of news, a lot of noise, and unfortunately a lot of misinformation around that. So if anybody has further questions, I'd be happy to have that conversation.
And how can they do that?
They can give me a call at 517-242-9251.
Got it. And you do have an online social platform.
I am on all of the socials. Google Chris Silker or Silker Sells, and you'll find me anywhere. My website is advantageinteam.kw.com.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, is there anything else I haven't asked you that you want to share with us today? I think we were pretty comprehensive.
I think in real estate in particular, most agents provide a quality service. I think that we have a great industry. There's a lot of great training. I think most agents can provide a quality service to people. I think the part that gets missed is where I want to focus my business is I want you to be able to look at your transaction a year later through that 2020 rear view lens and know that you were cared for, set up for success, and treated fairly. And I think that a lot of people unfortunately approach real estate from a transactional standpoint and miss that mark. And that's the mark I aim at, is I want to make sure people feel cared for. I want to still be in a relationship with you, whether you're another 10 years away from buying your next home, or maybe you're never going to buy another home, but I'm still a part of your life and I'm still there because I want you to know that you were treated fairly and taken care of.
I feel it. I feel the sincerity behind that, and I appreciate you coming on board with us here today.
It's truly a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today, Chris. And I'd like to give a final shout out to my loyal sponsors. We got Wagner Financial, Forsberg Real Estate, Triterra Environmental, Good Marketing, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. All great people, worth the call. If you found the show as a one-off, I remind you to like and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined pretty much anywhere you find your podcasts. This is Chris Buck. Thank you very much for listening to Michigan Reimagined.